Hello, good evening, good morning from wherever or whenever you're watching this. I'm Martin Cross. This is Cross's Corner, and I'm so thrilled to have a very good friend and amazing athlete, oarswoman, Frances Houghton, on this evening. Hi, Frances.
Hi, Martin. Great to be here.
It is tremendous. I'm really excited about this particular edition of Cross's Corner, which, if you watch regularly, you'll know it's supported by Ludum, the training management and performance analysis tool for sports coaches and training groups. And you can start a 30-day free trial, believe it or not, by visiting ludum.com. So that's great. So, Frances, you're looking fantastic. We were just talking before you came on air that you're down in Cornwall. How long have you been there for?
Yeah, so I moved to Cornwall in April 2017. So obviously I retired in Rio and then just took a bit of time making my way down here. It's been that long and it's lovely. Just moved to a place in the countryside and really enjoying it.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so how is retirement treating you? It looks wonderfully at the moment.
Well, it's certainly less stressful on many levels and less physically painful. I kind of see it as a gradual adaptation. I'm highly conditioned to, the things that we're really familiar with, all the structure and the discipline and everything. And I'm trying to just unwind myself and become slightly less highly strung with each passing month. And I'm getting there.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So what do you spend your days doing now?
Well, right now, we moved into a new house 2 weeks ago, and 1.5 weeks ago, we took on 2 dogs, and I've never had any animals before. So on the Saturday, we moved into our house. The Sunday, we got a mother and her pup. And on Monday, Steve went back to work. So I've learned a lot in 2 weeks.
That's incredible. And I mean, one of the things we're going to talk about is this fabulous book that you've put together, you've written, which I guess you wrote in Cornwall.
Well, I did. I had all the content when I was rowing and had sort of had it all gathered together. And that's what I was, trying to put into practice with my last chance in Rio. And then the last sort of 3.5 years has just been trying to apply a sieve to it and distill it until it was something that was really manageable and tangible. As a very readable sort of handbook of what I learned along the way.
Yeah, so we're going to get into that quite soon. I just wonder, we also had a little chat, and you said you're not sort of particularly, au fait with international rowing because, I mean, basically it hasn't been happening, has it, to be fair, for the last 20 months, particularly for the British team.
Yeah.
But you did watch the Europeans, and I wondered what you made of that, what you saw.
I did watch the Europeans. It was fantastic to see everyone racing. Oh, I can't imagine what it's been like to train and not know whether it's going to happen or not. So really pleased for them. I think the standout things for me, and sort of very, not selfishly, but from my personal perspective, is to see the women's sculling team do so well. I thought Vicky did brilliantly. We already know she's an outstanding athlete. But to see the quad and the double to come through and get on the podium, just go out there, they raced with respect, but also saying, well, why shouldn't we be up here as well?
Yeah. And
we've been trying so hard to get those sculling team boats up there again for so long. So I was just really pleased to see that.
Yeah. And some great results for the men as well.
Brilliant. Oh, that men's 8, what I loved about the men's 8 was just the first maybe 10 strokes, the way they came up out of the start and they were picking that boat up on the rise and coming out to length it was absolutely brilliant rowing, I thought.
Yeah. And I mean, I think from a personal perspective, it was just great to see some racing on the telly. We got a bit spoiled with the boat race one weekend and then the European Championships the other.
Yeah, well, you've got to kind of wind it up, haven't you? Rowing our 4-year thing, and we've been waiting an extra year. So,
yeah.
It's good. I heard the commentary was very good as well, Martin.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say so. I was waiting for that one, Frances.
You're the icing on the cake.
Yeah. So, your book, which I've got a copy of and thoroughly enjoyed reading, Learnings from 5 Olympic Games. Why that particular title?
Well, it is what it says on the tin. It is just my learnings from my 5 games. And I did want it to be succinct. And, I think Annie Vernon said to me, "Why did you choose that title?" And I thought, well, not very many people can have that title. So I thought I'd have it. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's very interesting the way it's put together, because there's lots of I wish I could kind of show it now, because it's quite an accessible book. There are there's not too much type on the page. There are lots and lots of pictures and diagrams, which are great, actually. I don't know if I could show one particular picture. Yeah, this is one particular one page, yeah, which you would recognize.
The ultimate race bag. So all of these pictures were sketches that I had in pencil and pen on my kitchen table to remind me of what worked for me and to keep coming back to the simple stuff. And I just worked with an amazing graphic designer to put it together and to make it colourful like it is. But my main aim was to pass on my learnings in a meaningful way. And that's why I made it colourful and succinct and to put in the pictures, because I know what I'm like if I'm confronted by a big tome. And I felt like I really wanted to write a big tome, but first of all, I needed to get the practical stuff out. And the thing that took me a long time to get right, and why, although I had the content, when I crossed the line in Rio, it took so long to actually produce what you now have in your hand, is to get this balance right between the practical, pragmatic, you can't get away from it, hard stuff that you need to do in rowing, and the real psychological hard stuff, and the more emotional human stuff, because it doesn't, for me, it definitely involved both. And I didn't want to go down an emotional rabbit hole. I didn't want to give everyone a blow-by-blow account of my life and my journey through rowing. Yeah. And I didn't want it to be really dry. But so that's why I wanted to have this balance. And so you'll see that there's almost lists of pragmatic stuff, and then I'll throw in a story to illustrate a point.
Yeah. Now you talk about it, I've got this graphic here.
Yeah.
Which is quite surprising, because I think particularly anyone in the Caversham system would think that the big circle there is rowing, and the little dot there is life.
Yeah.
And you've drawn it the other way. I was really struck by your illustration there. I mean, how do you explain that?
Right. So when I changed my mindset in 2014, it was a very deliberate thing. So you know me well, you'll know, like from the beginning, I was like, I want to win gold, and that is it. And that's what I'm here to do. We got to sort of 2011 through to 12, 13, 14, 15. And that mindset just wasn't working. I was getting ill, I was getting injured, and I just knew something had to change. There was no way I was going to get to Rio like banging the drum like I was, both for myself and like people rowing with me were definitely not enjoying it. It was not a fun place to be, in there with my frustration. And so I did change the way that I thought about it. And I was very much more like, okay, I've got to let go if I have to win. And actually this is about, can I stand on the podium and have a really positive experience with the people that I'm with? And, in order to do that, actually, I've really got to let go of this must. And I've got to accept that I might not win. And actually, it's more about us. It's not about me. As my weights coach said to me after Rio, she said, "Fran, the day you realized it's not all about you, everything changed." But a part of this was when I was injured in 2014, actually, and I missed the Worlds, I looked back at all my best performances and I thought, okay, so when it was in the quad, those great performances in the quad, how was I thinking? And actually, I wasn't thinking about winning then. It was more like, okay, what can we create together? I'm going to do this race on Sunday, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do something else. And I've got other stuff going on in my life, and the world's a really big place with so much interesting stuff to do. And when I raced badly, I was just totally tunnel visioned on rowing. And so that's when I drew out this sketch of the big circle life, little circle rowing. And I actually put that in the last year, I put that on my doormat every day when I left the house, so that when I came back in from training, I had to trip over it to get back in the house. Just to remind myself, just cannot get away from it.
Because I mean, I think even before 2014, I always had you as somebody who did have a life outside of rowing. You know, particularly in terms of you know, your language stuff, your cooking stuff.
Yeah. So I studied Spanish, and I loved that. I absolutely loved that, and I did some tutoring, and I loved being a student as well. And on the cooking side, after Beijing, I took time out to train as a chef. I think after that's when I started making you a Christmas cake.
Yeah. Love those.
Oh, so good. I love a bit of Christmas cake. No, that was a pleasure. And when I look back over my career, I realized that when I was a student, although I craved being full-time, every day I just wanted my studies to end so that I could be a full-time athlete. When I look back on it, I realized that was actually when I was the best athlete, because I do think about stuff a lot, too much. I'm an overthinker. And when I thought about rowing all the time, I just didn't have that separation from it. I didn't have that clean thinking. And when I was studying in sort of 2002, 3, 4, and 5, you know, if there was a trial or I was, you know, preparing for a race, I would rock up 15 minutes before and be like, okay, so what do I need to do? Okay, I'll do that. But when it got to like 2012, 13, 14, I was thinking about it the whole time. And it's just, I mean, there's not that much to it. You put the blade in the water, move the boat, take it out, do it again. And you know, that was much better for me to be doing something else. And, you know, it's nice that you saw that I had others, that I maybe had other texture to my character. And I think when I was in a good place, I did. But when it wasn't going right, I just didn't have enough of that other stuff going on.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that, you know, when I think of the Caversham system, which I've never been a part of, but just watched from the outside, I think particularly maybe say with the men's group that there was the expectation that you would say, I'm going for gold, or we are going for gold. I remember, I think it was Steve Rowbotham in the quad in 2012, and you know, they weren't. It looked to be a struggle for them to get a medal in terms of what they were doing. But you know, I remember doing an interview with him, and he says, you know, we're here to win, and it was like, oh, that's really quite interesting. You know, it was like a kind of Caversham mindset. So I'm just wondering, how easy was it for you to personalize your own goal within the context of a Caversham system?
Yeah, certainly when I changed my mindset to it's not all about winning and we don't have to win, that was really tough, because I knew it was right for me, and it absolutely felt right for me to change it in that way. But I felt that was definitely against the grain. I didn't feel like I had permission to think like that.
Yeah.
And that, you know, there was definitely a moment in Rio when we were pretty far back on the field, and I thought, you know, I'm going to get it for this, because, you know.
Oh, you thought that actually, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
This is all going to come down really badly on me. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. It was hard to hold on to a different mindset within that. But something that I really tried to bring and encourage others to see when they came into the system was when I first came, Debbie and I, when we first came into the system, Debbie Flood, to make a final was celebrated, especially in women's sculling and, you know, and the street team as well. But to make it, that's bloody good. It's really good. And so, you know, I always wanted to say to the other girls, you know, if anyone did make a final, you know, I know everyone around you and there's pictures of medals everywhere, but it's still really good. And whether it's okay to do that in a system that is striving for gold, but at the same time, it's good to aim high, but it's also, it's not good to not realize how good the other stepping stones are.
Yeah. Because another thing popped into my head now, which was the year that I got married, which was the same as the Seoul Olympics. And I remember a conversation with the crew in the spring, which was essentially saying the most important thing that's happened in my life this year is my marriage, which they were really shocked at. And the thing is, if you looked at what I was doing with my time, then the most important thing I was doing was probably rowing. But I think saying something different to the crew was quite a thing. But I'm guessing you had. I mean, you talk so much about the trust created in the boat that I'm guessing that wasn't so much of an issue for you.
Yeah. So I think I was just about to say I think it can surprise people if you come out with something a bit left field like that other people don't have the the confidence to say. But if you back it up and your actions still make others feel safe and that they know that you're absolutely there in it for every moment that you are there together, then I think people's minds are much more flexible than we give them credit for. Yeah. And it's much easier to toe a line and to carry on a same language that we already hear. But yeah, that trust that we built, especially in the women's 8, I did have a different mindset, but it was the everyday way that we all came to the project. It was clear that we were absolutely committed to it, whether it was a really positive, we want to go as fast as we can, but it doesn't matter for the rest of my life if we don't win, or someone else was like, it really does matter for the rest of my life if I don't win. I think we still got to the other side of that conversation, which was, but we still want to go, we all want to go as fast as we possibly can. And our reasons are different. And especially in that 8 in 2016, and I talk about this in the book, is that process we went through, each and every one of us earning our seat and seeing how hard each of the girls was prepared to push themselves for what they wanted to be a part of. That process, each and every seat race, it was so close. And to see each other push themselves like that was where it was built. And I just don't think that, having been through that together, seen each other like in the absolute thick of it, with each other, that is way more powerful than really the reason why each person's doing it. If you've seen, if you don't agree with the reason they're doing it, but you can see how hard they're pushing still to be in the boat, then that's what matters. And then you can trust them under pressure. That's the point. Yeah,
because I worked with Ro Bradbury when she came into Hampton after she just missed making the 8. So I kind of had a bit from the other side of people, and I know you saw the 8 as a group of women as opposed to just 8 women and a cox and the coach.
Yeah, we did, absolutely. And I think that one of the strongest stories in that 8 was that when that we had the sort of retrialing to see if the double would come into the 8, actually at this time in the Olympic cycle, because it was the week after the Europeans when then maybe the double would come into the 8. The 2 people that were most upset were our spares. And of course, you might say, well, that's because, they would probably lose their seats. But actually, the way they expressed it was, we can see how special this team is, and it breaks our heart that it's going to be could be broken up. And I think if you're spares who aren't even in it, but feel that much a part of the team, and are that expressive about the situation, I think that says a lot about the group of people.
I was just trying to find that little graphic that you drew of where the crew psyche went. Oh, there it is. That one.
Lots of drawings. That one.
Yeah, I'll just have to get the right one.
What does it say? Olympic nerves, don't freak out.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to know a couple of things about. I think one of the low points was one
of them
more trials.
Pick one. More trials.
More trials. Which is what you're talking about with this. I guess it was quite incredible, really, in the middle of an Olympic season where you've kind of pretty much got your boat set. almost at the last minute, the double of Victoria Thornley and Catherine Granger come into your sort of quite sort of together women's 8 group, and it's everything's thrown up, and so psychologically, I mean, how did you deal with that?
I found it really difficult, largely because it reminded me so much of what happened before Sydney.
I was going to say Sydney was on the mind. Yeah,
it didn't. I'm sure many people don't remember that, but actually, pretty much the same thing happened. So I was in the double, and I think there were various different trials, but I was in the double, and then there was the quad, and then the quad looked like it had a better chance, and so everything was changed 6 weeks before the games. And I was very young, and I had other opportunities, but it was really difficult to deal with at the time. It was my games. I didn't know if I was ever going to go to another games, and that's why I found it very difficult that the same thing had happened in the run up to Rio, because I had seen how hard everyone had worked to get their seat in this 8, and to think that another young person might have their experience of the Olympics taken away like I did. I knew what it felt like. And that's what really got to me. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that your experience, or how, the women dealt with it, you and your crewmates dealt with it, went into making that sort of great race in the Rio final?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think everyone remembers how they dealt with it differently. But my how I saw it from my seat was that we went into like another set of 4s trialing, and actually I wasn't in the 4s. I was actually on the ergo. I was doing some repeat ergos. But the one when we sat down beforehand, what I remember is we said, okay, well, we've worked out the style of rowing that works for us. We've got like our blueprint pattern. We're going to go out and we will row like that, and we'll see if that takes where that takes us. If one of the others coming in makes that go faster, fair dues, great. And if it doesn't, then we know that our pattern works, because on paper these guys are absolute superstars. They're higher ranked than us, physically, and all their performances absolutely outstanding athletes. And the thing was that because we did, all the girls in the boat did win their seat races rowing our pattern, what it did was it sealed our belief in our way of rowing. Because we'd seen off the challenge with that pattern. And so when we were in Rio, slightly at the back of the field, halfway through the final, we had absolute trust in this pattern because it had been tried and tested. And so, I just remember Zoe saying, like, this is our pattern, keep doing it. Everyone else has gone off too hard. And, we just had that. It was like the sealant. It was like the wax on top of this thing that we'd already tried. We knew from the Europeans and Lucerne, we'd had great races. Then we had this seat racing, tested it out under sort of even more pressure. It had come out on top. And then it was like, okay, well, why would you change what you've tried and tested?
Yeah. And then there was another down on that picture where your coach was diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
James.
Yeah. So that was the following week. Yeah, we came back and he said, it's absolutely, good work, girls. You will stay together as a team. But, I have other news, which certainly put all of that into perspective. Fortunately, he did recover. He's doing great now. But we had a period of time where we had to change coaches, and that was really tricky because, you build up a language, you build up an understanding, and we were a good unit. And, there was a lot of fatigue from all the training and the racing that had happened. But, fortunately, we got to the games. And at one point, James said to me, well, this is the least stressful thing that's happened to me in 4 years. So so that was the positive lining of it.
When you get to the games, I was really interested in these sort of wiggly lines going backwards and forwards. Which I get, is that the Rio training camp ahead of the games, or is that in Rio?
Yeah, really sort of in Rio. So I saw it that I've always kind of seen it. You do 4 years of training, and really it's sort of 3 years and 360 days is one block. And then the last 5 days, or even the last 24 hours, they almost carry as much weight as the other 3 years and 51 weeks. And everyone responds to stress in different ways. Some people become really adamant. Some people become really doubtful. Some people become really positive. And it's just, I saw my role in the 8 was that, because I'd kind of been through that a few times, and there wasn't that much more. I couldn't get that much better at rowing in the last year, like little bits. But if I could try and make sure we didn't just decide to throw the plan out in the last 24 hours or do something completely different in the final, that was like just trying to hold all that stuff together.
Yeah.
Even on my own part, like I'd been there 4 times before, and I remember in the the week we were training before, I was just finding it really hard to think clearly. I just had my brain had just suddenly went really emotional, which I know is very common.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this to Lady Anne, our doctor, and we just had like a bit of a chat. And then that evening we went to the sort of mock opening ceremony where the Prime Minister, Theresa May, came and gave a speech, and it's all like this, nice Team GB, everyone together who hasn't gone to the real opening ceremony. And Theresa May is just giving this speech, and up to my side comes Steve Redgrave, and quietly at high volume starts sort of, "So, how are you feeling? I hear you're feeling a bit emotional." I was like, "Well, yeah, but maybe we should be a bit quieter about this." No, straight in. You'll be fine. Just hold on to your oar and just keep it really simple. And, it was brilliant to have him come and just, set me straight.
Yeah.
But he just a little bit less volume.
Yeah. I was very struck. It's always interesting. I think the way you talked about vulnerability in which I'm wondering, is that it's quite hard for guys to show vulnerability. I'm imagining, is it more hard for the men in the team to show the vulnerability? Because with you, it's absolutely necessary to have an awareness of your own vulnerability and to be able to for trust in the team, to be able to show that within the team. But you make quite an important point. There's even another nice little diagram of vulnerability.
Yeah, I describe it as a zip. So, where I've got a strength, maybe I can help fill someone else's own doubt or what they perceive is not a strength of theirs. And where I've got a weakness, if someone can come and fill that with their strength, and that can be a practical thing. So, for example, when I rode with Debbie Flood in the double, she's absolutely amazing off the start. And I'm useless. So I'm like, right, you come and do the start and I'll do the middle bit. I remember sometimes I'd sit on the start with her and I'd say, just think of it as a really long race. Don't go off too hard, and I'll take care of the middle. You just get me to the middle bit. I don't know what it's like for guys, because obviously I've never rode with guys. But I do know that there was one point in 2014, 2015 when I was really struggling, and one of the other girls came to me and they said, "Oh, I had no idea you were struggling. You always seem like you've got it together and you're just like this pillar and you'll just keep going." And I said, "Actually, I'm really struggling and I just don't think I'm going to make it to Rio." And she was like, "Oh, right. Okay." And we ended up then supporting each other so much more. And that made me realize how important it was to tell someone if I needed them, or tell someone if I just needed some support. And it didn't mean it would make me weaker. It would actually make us as a partnership stronger.
Yeah.
And I found that a lot in crew boats. People often in the early years of an Olympic cycle wouldn't give away anything in terms of how they race their single or really what they wanted to do in the boat, because they didn't want to give away too much in case they weren't selected in the boat the following year.
Yeah.
But actually, people don't really take on what someone else does. I mean, you can create stuff as a crew between you, but if I rode with you and you told me what works for you in your single, that might help us form our thing for this year. But I'm not suddenly going to do what you do next year because I don't fully understand it.
Yeah.
So I think it is safe to do that.
Yeah, I mean, 100% agree with you. I think a lot of that is around the environment that is created. I mean, I'm wondering how much you created your own environment, as just around yourself as an individual, Francis, and then within the team to allow that to happen. Because I'm seeing that if a high performance environment would be one where people are able to express vulnerability without fear, to the benefit of all. And there's a lot to do with the kind of coaching staff, performance director. They need to be able to create an environment where that happens.
I think as you say, it very much depends on the little bubbles that you're in and how safe you feel, between each other. And I think the way that I saw it manifest itself was that the very best crews I was in were the ones that were able to be completely honest with each other. So to honestly be able to say, actually, I'm struggling, or actually, we had a great race, but we could go so much faster. That was the common denominator. And maybe that's just a different way of describing a similar thing.
Yeah.
Because vulnerability already as a word sounds like, well, I'm not sure really I would want to portray that. But actually, honesty is like layers of stuff that will make you stronger.
Yeah.
And maybe they're not that different, but you can actually get over maybe the same hurdles by approaching it in that way. And I would always think, fundamental belief in yourself, trust in the people, and trust in the training program. And then when you've got those two, and then when you start getting to a point where you know each other well enough, where you will be honest with each other and you feel safe to be honest with each other, like in any review of a race, whether it's gone well or badly, you feel you can be honest. That's, I think, when the lid comes off and you can really start making progress.
Yeah. I mean, I was very struck by when you talk about trust, you have this, you kind of tell people that trust isn't something you can just make on day one to say, right, we all trust each other, let's shake hands, that it's actually forged through many interactions over a period of time.
I think that's what I found. In the quad in 2004, we had a really great partnership, but and we were really young, and it's easy to think, oh, that came really quickly. But actually, Debbie, Rebecca, and I knew each other as juniors, as under 23s, and then we came together. So we knew each other really well as people. And so we had raced together with each other. And once you've raced with someone and you've been through the thick of it with someone, that is a layer of trust. And Alison Mowbray had really looked out for me when I joined the squad in 1999.
Yeah, sorry, 1999.
Wrong century.
Yeah.
1999 and 2000. And so we had, really gone through some tough races together and selection processes. So there was a trust, a real trust there. And, I think it's just so easy to say, okay, day one, let's just agree to trust each other. But actually, the point is what happens when you are pretty much a length down in the Olympic final? What is your instinctive response then? That's when you find out whether you trust them or not. So, I just knew that if we just said, okay, let's trust each other, it's just not good enough. You've got to really, really trust each other and have proof of it in your own mind. And some people are quicker to trust than others. But for me, it was like these stitches, layer upon layer upon layer, all these different experiences. And that's why, a tough selection process is horrible to go through, but it's like the stitches that can be the thing that holds it together. And then when you're challenged, there's only so many layers of these stitches the challenge can get through, because you're like this, you're a trampoline, and you can say, actually, it's only so far you can get with us because we know each other and we can actually produce despite this.
You've got some great images there. I love that view of a trampoline.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things, I mean, you'll know this, that all the under 23s have got a copy of your book. Is that?
Yeah, well, it might be true. So it was so good. So originally I wrote the book. There were two reasons. Number one, because there was just all this stuff in my head and I just really needed to get it out. And secondly, I wanted to articulate it as a thank you to a few friends, coaches who had really helped me, especially get over the line in the last couple of years. And one of those was Shep. He really helped me in my single training before Rio. I think it was like we've tried Fran on everyone and just still struggling. Shep will keep it simple, but it was exactly what I needed. And so I sent Shep a copy, and he's been incredibly supportive. He's, it was really nice of him to say what a sort of a fan of it he is. And he's given copies to all of his development athletes, which I'm just really pleased that things that I learn, I can pass on to others, and maybe it'll help them not only like have a good experience, maybe it'll make them go a bit faster, but maybe they disagree with everything in the book, and that is absolutely fine. This is just the way that I found stuff. But if that starts the conversation with a coach or with a fellow teammate that says, Fran thought this and I think that's absolute rubbish, great, at least you're already starting to, you're talking about, let's just trust each other right now. Great, good for you, but you're talking about it.
Who, I don't want to just leave it to the end actually, but who do you want to read this book? And then I'm thinking, we ought to say quite a few times how you get hold of it.
Right. So it's available. I've done it all myself. So because I wanted it done in a particular way, all these illustrations and stuff. So it is only available through my website, and that's francishoughton.co.uk. That's where it is. Who do I want to read it? Anyone who's interested in doing something as well as you can do it, whether that be rowing or another sport, or I've been working with people in with emergency medicine teams who understanding the human factors in intense performance. So anyone that is interested in working themselves out and actually really what it takes at the highest end, because I don't think I actually talk about training much at all in the book. Maybe a couple of points, but there's so much more to it. And I think that's what I want to, if it can reach people who are interested, whether they're doing it themselves or coaching others, that would be fantastic.
Well, I have to say, Chris, my partner, she doesn't read rowing books. She's read Ali Mowbray's because it wasn't like a rowing book. It was quite, and she's read your book too.
Great.
Which,
Well, I call it sort of an espresso bar book. You can read it in little bits and you can come back to it.
Yeah. Well, there's quite a lot to it. I think it needs coming back to, because, each page has kind of got a richness to it. Was there a sense in why you decided to write it in the order that you did?
A couple of people have asked that. It is an emotional sandwich, sort of. So I give a context to how I started rowing and how I came to make this. Like, I want to win and I want to be the first woman to go to 5 games in Britain for rowing. That's at the start, and then really the story of how things really changed for me. I leave that to the conclusion, and in the middle is the more pragmatic stuff. I sprinkle the stories in to illustrate the points, and so it's not just the points, but it's colourful in between. But I did start with teams because they just seem the most important bit to me. That's what rowing was to me, and that's where I got my sort of greatest experiences from. And then each chapter, it was funny because the chapters just came straight away. It just started as much bigger than it is now, and it is, you're right, it is intense because it is a distillation of everything. I've tried every single sentence. I've tried to make sure that there's a lot in each one, so it will take time to percolate on it and understand what that means for anyone as a reader. So I don't know, the order of the chapters just felt a bit logical to me. I think it goes training and then racing and then meeting, something like that.
Yeah. Well, there's dealing with nerves as well, isn't there? You put quite a lot of dealing with nerves, and you had quite a defined strategy, it seems, for dealing with your nerves.
Yeah, well, I kind of needed it. I think it probably tells a lot that chapter's quite long, in that took a lot of time for me to work out. I felt a lot of pressure. I put a lot of pressure on myself, both by aiming to win, and I knew that there was a certain level of expectation on me from a young age to deliver, a level of performance. And as my career went on, it was clear that I had not delivered this gold medal. And so I really needed to work that out in my own mind. And that was something that I worked really hard at. And I did not get it right every time. I still got really nervous, or my nerves, show themselves in different ways. Like I'd just get irritable with people, or I'd get really quiet, or I'd overthink it. And so what I've written in the book is this is what I did on a good day. But I absolutely would admit that, there were as many days I didn't get it right as not. But I think that's partly why I wanted to write the book, is that, you can't only give yourself permission to write something down if you get it right every time. And I absolutely didn't. But if I could just capture the times when I did, and then for someone else, either to understand it or to try and give themselves the language to figure it out for themselves, then at least it's a starting point.
It's very practical in terms of the way you deal with it, because I was reading it, relating it to myself. Oh yeah, these are real concrete steps that you can take when you have nerves as to how you deal with them. I kind of also wanted to ask, is it really you make the rowing stroke very simple. Talk about three things, is it?
Yeah. Well, because that's what it needed to be for me.
Is it that simple?
Well, it kind of is, isn't it? You put the blade in, you move the boat, you take it out, and you do it again. And I think, the thing is, in a crew boat, that's what I found. We needed to keep it simple, ruthlessly simple. And we needed to have a really clear picture on, if there were three things that we could say, this is what we do, because there are so many different ways to row a rowing stroke. And essentially, you could row really badly, but at least if you do the same thing badly, that's better than doing different things.
Yeah.
So, but if you can absolutely have that common language and be able to describe the stroke, then that just seemed to be the way that the crews I was in worked. And that might be because if I didn't do that, then I made it really complicated. That's the most likely thing. So it's just the way that I approached it. And I just know that when I look back over my races and I said, okay, the ones that I did well, that's how I saw it for me. It's like, Fran, just sit on this start, row off the start, move the boat, put the blade in. Move it. So on the start in every boat I was in, when it got to the Worlds or the Olympics, I just have three things written on the back of my hand. And normally by the time I got to the final, it was literally the first three things I needed to do when the red light went off. So it would be legs, hands, body, just to make myself keep it simple.
Yeah. I was just going to ask you something there about the technique that you had. I think going to Beijing, one of the things, I'll come back because I've just lost what I was going to ask you about technique. But one of the things you said in the book was I could have used could have used many analogies from your Beijing quad, which you for people that don't know, I think you came into that off the back of 3 world titles.
Yeah.
I know you include a picture of it, but I was kind of struck there wasn't too much about the Beijing experience, and I kind of wanted to ask you where you are with all that now, that sort of pain of I guess being rowed through in the last 250 when you were leading the race the whole way down, and clearly going to win the Olympic gold in that race.
Yeah. Number one, in terms of like using examples from the Beijing quad, like in all honesty, my memory just isn't that good. So I do remember we did a whole load of stuff really well, but I wouldn't have been able to illustrate it and tell stories and be confident that my memory was serving me right, which obviously I could do a lot better with the Rio crew. In terms of sort of the pain of Beijing, Yeah, we were favourites. The Chinese did beat us in the race in Lucerne. I think I probably tried, I was doing the calls. I probably tried to win the race too early. I think.
Really?
Yeah, quite possibly. I think one of the, the rhythm is so important, isn't it? And the times when we've got really good rhythm, that's what carries you through.
Yeah.
And the Chinese did have very good rhythm. So, I mean, it's really difficult. The worst thing about it was crossing the line and realizing that you can't turn the clock back 6.5 minutes. Like, it's all you want. Just rewind my life. 6.5 minutes. That's it. And I've either got to carry on for another 4 years, or I've got to live the rest of my life with this disappointment and never try and right it. And the very, very worst thing was to stand on that podium and know that for Annie, her first Olympic medal didn't feel like our first Olympic medals did. For Catherine in Sydney winning silver, and myself and Debbie winning silver in Athens.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
And we just couldn't take that away. We couldn't rewrite the story for her. It didn't matter how many times we said, look, I know we're disappointed, but you should be really proud. She didn't feel like that. She felt as gutted as we did. So, for me, that was the worst thing. At the end of the day, it's a race and you've got to get it right on the day. And, it was a really tough year, but, it taught me a lot. And, do you think
you could have won that race? Do you think you could have won it?
I think lots of people, every race can unfold in a different way. Of course we could have won it. Of course, the Chinese could have come third. The Germans had never lost in the history of event. We could have raced it differently. But you can eat something different the day before. You could, of course. But the way that you race on the day is made up of many, many, many decisions on the way to that day. And that's where we ended up. So, I'm still really, I feel so privileged to have rode with, Catherine and Debbie and Annie, and to have, been through what we went through. So, I'm proud of a silver medal. Of course, it's such a shame never to have won gold, but both in Athens and in Beijing. And then there was a moment in the final in Rio when we were rowing down the Americans. I know it was only a short moment, but there was a moment. And
was it?
My goodness, I never thought I would have these 3 chances. And so, I just feel really lucky that I've been in that position. And I shouldn't feel like I've disappointed others in not fulfilling what others thought I was capable of, but I just appreciate what I've been able to do.
I think, your story does come through the book, and I think it's very striking how you pivot around 2014 and, which we started talking about. And you come to your own sense of ownership as to this is why I row, this is my goal, which can leave you, exultant over winning a silver medal, a fabulous silver medal, second to none in Rio.
Yeah, well, I was pretty sure after Beijing that if we had won, we would have been relieved that we had won. Yeah. And I thought, that's not how you should feel. Really not how you should feel. And so that really played a part in how I redefined what I was aiming for. So I went from I want to win gold to in 2014 when I was injured, and I did sort of actually write down a different goal. I said, I want to stand on the Olympic podium with my arms around my teammates and feel joy, not relief.
That's so cool.
Well, it's just what was right for me. And it also meant that I really needed to understand my teammates, and rather than drive, this is, up until Beijing, and actually the other side of Beijing, where I felt like I was trying to make crews I was in do really well. I was trying to say, like, this is how you do it, but that doesn't work. You've got to create your own new thing together. And it was only at that point in sort of 2014, 2015 that I realized, Fran, like, this just isn't working. You need to you need to take yourself out of this. You need to like stop pushing everyone, like take a step back. And, you know, it's everyone and everyone together. And, you know, as I've said, it is really tough to make the team. And so, you know, I came from, you know, that point where to make a final was really good. And so I wanted to make sure that, you know, everyone, if I did get the chance to get in a team again and I did get to go to Rio, that anyone that I was it with, I would absolutely say to them, look, if you were at the Olympics, you know, even celebrate that, because that's an amazing achievement to be an Olympian. And you know, give ourselves permission to celebrate that, rather than put pressure on ourselves that, okay, well, we really should win a medal. We've got to win a medal. Like, you know, the 8 hasn't won a medal yet. You know, that just wasn't going to bring out a good performance in us. It had to be an open-ended, what can we do?
Yeah. Another thing that struck me really, particularly, you know, through those years which were really tough with injuries, was how you, because I was thinking about this. Oh, you know, Fran went in from sculling, which is quite a nice up and down motion, to sweep, which is, you know, torsional, twisting. But you do say with all your injuries that, you know, you gave yourself time to look after them. And because I know athletes are very, you know, when they get injured and things around that. But it was almost quite comforting. I think you wrote about, you know, pulling 240 splits on the ergometer in terms of one little aspect.
Yeah, when I was coming back from being burnt out in 2014, that's where I started. 240s for quite a period of time. You know, I wasn't allowed to move on to the next step. I didn't even feel like I was able to move on to like 235s for probably like 3 weeks.
Wow.
But I trusted my body. And I've never won for intervention, so I didn't want operations, and I didn't want, anything that was just not. I just feel if you can give your body the time to heal itself, it will heal much more strongly, and it will always stay on your side. So that, you know, I think I was partly stubborn. It's just the way that I think. That's what worked for me.
Yeah. One thing that occurred to me as you were talking there, just in terms of the makeup that goes into, you know, making you the athlete you are, is I remember always seeing your mum and dad, because your dad in particular was quite a presence at international regattas.
He was a consistent presence. Yeah,
as a supporter.
He was. They came to almost every race. I was thinking about that earlier today, actually. And they were so disappointed when I was injured, because they were like, well, where are we going to go? So you can go and support everyone else without me. It was amazing to have their support. And Dad actually passed away 5 weeks before Rio. But I think he felt like I was in safe hands, and I was in a boat that I was clearly really enjoying. And I think he thought, I'm going to go and get the best view.
Wow. Yeah. Up Christ the Redeemer looking down.
Yeah. So no, I mean, it was amazing to have their support. They never put pressure on me. I mean, we are not a sporty family at all. Well, my sister's sporty, but that's an anomaly. So actually, you know, I've sort of chatted about a couple of terrible things about Beijing, but one of the just heartbreaking things was to see the look on my dad's face when we were on the podium, because you could just see he was. You know, he didn't mind that we didn't win, but he wanted to take the pain away, and he couldn't. And just to see the heartbreak in his eyes was, you know, I couldn't take his pain away either. And you can't get close to each other at all. And so I just felt so awful to have caused that. So just such a horrible day for him. And, you know, to have to. Oh, he was just. You know, they were both very supportive. Yeah, you say he has a big presence. It's like 6'7" and not exactly slim.
Yeah, no, it was amazing to see them and the Union Jack, the flags, and
always bring us Union Jack. Yeah,
all manner of banners.
He used to take photos of all these different crews, and he'd say, "Look, this is you in your race." I said, "No, that's the French. No, that's the Russians."
Yeah.
Never knew which ones we were.
Yeah. What did your crew, the Rio crew, what do they think of your book and what you've done? Have you had what sort of feedback have you had?
Oh, they've been really supportive, which has been lovely. You've written your own book, so I'm sure you went through this as well, Martin. But you write it, and then you think, okay, at what stage do I need to show this to everyone that I need to show to before I sort of put it out in the world? And I did show it to them. I showed it to a couple of them during the process, mainly because I was really struggling to get it out of my head. And they were supportive at that stage. And then when it came together, we had a little sort of we went down the order of the boat of who needed to send it to who, and I sent envelopes, kind of forwarding envelopes to each person with a note in each one for each person, and I just wanted to make sure that it was okay with each of them before I made it available widely. But I think it was really fun because we've had a chat about it, and everyone does remember things slightly differently, and that's absolutely fine. And I think Jess Eddy said, I just had no idea you were thinking so much, Fran. I was just sitting there churning it out. And there you are, your cogs going round and round. I had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I know you must have, because you are an introvert, even though people will think, that you're so bubbly and effervescent that you might even be an extrovert on this chat. But have you got any advice for us extroverts on how to be and how to row with introverts?
Don't crowd us. Give us lots of space and lots of silence. Yeah. That's the thing. I realize how much. I think I was drawn to rowing in the end and found rowing as a sport because, you can be in your own headspace. And I loved that. And then I was only made really aware of the whole sort of, introvert, extrovert in sort of 2004 when we did some personality testing. And there's a few people on the team who were extroverts and quite a few of us who were introverts. And I just realized, okay, so, I find that really, in a way it can be energy in, but there's a point where this becomes a bit much, and I just find it energy draining. And you say, what advice is there for extroverts rowing with introverts? Yeah, I just a bit of calm is nice. Give us our time in our own heads. Yeah.
I thought of that question, which I was searching for. I meant to ask you around the technique. And that was, which I thought was a really sound piece of advice, which was you mentioned around when you row off from the dock, you do exactly the things that you want to commit to. I think you said it was racing in 2003 with Elise Laverick in the stroke seat.
Yeah, I just remember it so clearly. So I would always think when we push off from the dock, send that message, absolutely, this is how we've said we're going to row. And I sat there and Elise tapped her hands down, straight down, really clean finish, down, away. And I just thought, right, this is what we're going to do. It's so simple. And it was a shame that Elise didn't stroke boats more often, because I think that was one of the only boats, and she was very often in the bow of the double. But actually, as the stroke of that quad, she was absolutely outstanding. Really good, really, really great racer, really good technician. And it's the same in I remember in the 8 and in the other quads I was in, that actually on race day, one of the biggest things you can do for those around you is show that you are thinking clearly. Even if you're not, you can do these actions. Whatever's going on in your head, you can commit to these actions, and that sends the message, follow this pattern, this is what we're going to do. And that's how you kind of burst through the fog with real practical, real simple stuff you can actually do with your hands when you're nervous.
Yeah. Well, one of the very poignant parts of the book is where you talk about a mate of yours who was very sadly killed doing the John O'Groats to Land's End cycle. I mean, it sounds a bit silly to say why did you include that in the book, because it was obviously such a massive deal for you at the time. What was the context that you wanted to put around that for the book?
So Yeah, the reason why I included that story is because when after that happened, being together with a few of us who were very close to her husband, it just made me realize that it was about when I was sort of changing the way that I thought and stuff, and it sealed for me that this is about so much more than sport. Much more than sport. Sport has given me these friendships. It's given me someone I'm so close to be able to be with them in a time like this. That is what sport's giving me. It's not. I'm not pursuing pieces of metal. I'm pursuing the relationships and the experiences and these bonds that go far, far beyond a moment on a podium that you may or may not have. So invest in these relationships, because that is what will last with me forever and will be really valuable. And you don't know when it's going to be valuable, but it's going to mean so much more than however you've done in any given race.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I know that's you explained that in part of in that story. It's written in red, isn't it?
It is. It's kind of there was just certain points where these were lines that I would not cross back over, and that was one of them. This is a moment, and that seals the way I'm thinking, and I will not revert now.
Yeah, you're quite a strong-willed person, really, aren't you?
Yeah, I make these vows. Yeah, I haven't made any recently.
Have you not? Have you lightened up, do you think? Or
I'm trying to. Yeah, I think so. I am just gradually trying to unstring myself from my highly strung, highly conditioned, needing everything down to the last 5 minutes. I'm getting at the moment. My aim, Martin, each day is to get to the end of the day and have 2 dogs still alive, which so far we're managing.
Yeah. Is there another book in there somewhere?
Oh, well, originally this was me just trying to get out the real specific rowing stuff while I could remember it. And I was leaving all the stories on one side because I thought I can't do the tome now. I've got, I've just got to get one out. Let me get this out. So there are a lot of small stories, but to be honest, I'm really enjoying having done this one. We'll see. As they say, you need time, money, and resources or something. I don't know to get another one out. It's been a big project, and especially to do it all on my own. Well, not quite on my own. I've done it myself, and then I've connected with people. Everyone that has helped me is down here in Cornwall. So my printer's down here, and I'm going to go and see him tomorrow. My poor printer keeps getting flooded. He's in Lostwithiel near Foy, and there's always something like the guillotine breaks or there's a massive spring tide or something. Anyway, so printer down here, graphic designer down here, and web designer, all in Cornwall. And it was important to me to connect with people down here, being new to being here. And also it completely mirrored what I had found in rowing, which was when I was trying to do it completely on my own, it became a bit of oh God, this is really hard, and why am I doing it? And then I found the right people to work with, and it's just been brilliant. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking for well over an hour now. I'm just thinking in terms of the book, I'd really see young kids, like students at school. It would be great for school boys and school girls and their coaches as well to read. I'm
really keen that coaches read it, actually, to get an insight into this is what's maybe going on in the head of one of your athletes.
Yeah. So let's just remind people again how they can get hold of a copy of the book.
Right. So it's my website, which is my name, Francis Houghton, www.francis with an E, Houghton, HOUGHTON.co.uk. So francishoughton.co.uk. And I do occasionally go on Twitter and Instagram, but I'm absolutely useless at it. So but there are some links on there to podcasts I've done, and any updates on the book, if I have any. I try and put on there when I can, tap my phone enough to make the right thing happen. And they're both at Houghton Francis.
Yes, I think I have seen you on Twitter on occasions.
Retweet
Yeah.
is comment. Oh right, how do I? Oh God, okay. Yeah.
So, are you looking forward to watching rowing at the Tokyo Olympics if it happens?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to all the Olympic
Oh, of
sports.
course.
Yes,
Yeah.
all of them. I actually spent a lot of Rio watching that on the TV because I think I was just old and tired, and it felt like such a long way to try and get to any of the stadia. So that's how I did it in Rio, and I think yeah, I suppose this will be my first. It will be my first games. Yeah, watching it.
It will be. That's what I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be brilliant. Well, hopefully by then we'll have a TV, because at the moment it's typical Cornwall. We've got no phone signal, no landline phone, and no Wi-Fi. So hopefully, come June, BT will be.
How are you doing this? How are you doing this interview then?
In a next door garage. We've got some Wi-Fi next door. Yeah.
Oh wow, Francis. Well, it's been amazing to talk. Do you think there's anything that we haven't talked about in terms of your wonderful book that it would be good to just make a little mention of now?
I think to say this was my experience. It is a distillation. It's a short little thing. Really, you can read it really quickly, but you probably want to come back to it and read it over and over again. Oh yeah, and it's called Learnings from 5 Olympic Games. Yeah. Yeah, and just I think a massive thank you to everyone that helped me along the way, because I started out and I just loved moving a boat, and so many people have been a part of me, having a fantastic time in rowing and discovering sport, really.
Wow, that's great. You are an amazing lady, Francis, I have to say.
Oh, thanks, Martin. You're an amazing commentator and Christmas cake eater.
So we'll end the live part of this broadcast now, and we'll say thank you for watching, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you've taken something out of it. I know I have. And see you soon on another edition of Crossy's Corner. Bye.